We'll record the webinar today. Just want to let everyone know that. Looks like we've got that going just fine. Good morning. This is Strategies for Highly Effective Teams. Hopefully everyone can see the slides through the webinar. We'll get started in just a minute. Okay, this is 9:30 a.m. It looks like right now we have 4 of you on the line. If you're not muted, if I could just have you jump on the line and say good morning. I want to be sure you're out there. Heard from a couple of you through the chat box, but I do want to be sure the sound is working. And we'll get through a few slides here, talk a little bit about strategies for highly effective teams. This is a similar presentation to what we presented back in 2011. So is anybody out there? Lucy Joyce, good morning. See you're on the line also. And Caitlin, I'm not sure if we've met. Good morning to you, Caitlin, Bev, and to Kimberly Ames. So I'm going to get rolling. It sounds like Kimberly can hear me okay, and I'm hoping the rest of you can. This is Strategies for Highly Effective Teams. Again, this is Kim Fleming. I think most of you know who I am, although, Caitlin, I don't believe that we've met. I have been offering webinars as part of the professional development team. Actually, since July of 2011, we started in this presentation on strategies for highly effective teams. Was actually one of our first webinars. We had found an article in the Harvard Business Review and seemed to be very timely for Cornell Cooperative Extension and something we wanted to share with the system. Since then, we've updated the presentation a bit, and we've added some wonderful pictures you probably have seen in the handout that we sent out in the email. And I appreciate everyone who has sent those team photos in. We're continuing to use them, and we may see a picture of Bev Mancuso or two in the presentation as she was involved back in 2011. So we're going to go through this. I think most of you are familiar with WebEx, but if you haven't used it before, we do have a chat box, and you'll want to make sure that your send to box, it goes to all participants so everyone can see your comments or your questions. If you do want to send something just to me, you can send to, let's see what it is, to the presenter or the host, and that will get directly to me privately if you need to do that. But it does help to have all participants and people can see the conversation that's going on. So this is Strategies for Highly Effective Teams, and hopefully you can hear me now. I'm going to proceed with the slides, make sure that works, and we are recording the webinar. I do want to be sure that everyone's very comfortable. We obviously, I thank you for respecting others on the line. Make sure you ask questions if you have them. There's just a few of us, so feel free to jump right on the line, and we can talk about things as we go through. And if there's anything else you want to add to this, we're happy to do that. Thank you, Lucy. I'm half watching my chat, so good. Sounds, we're going to move on then. So we've moved the first slide. Hopefully everyone can see that that's moved along. And we're going to start with a quote here. And the quote is, "Coming together is a beginning, staying together is progress, and working together is success." And this is a quote by Henry Ford. And really a great quote tied around teamwork in Cornell Cooperative Extension or anywhere. We can always get together. That's the beginning of it all. Staying together is really a great thing, and then working together and actually accomplishing something is success. So this is just a brief presentation. I've actually, as I said, cut down a few slides, so we'll go a little bit quicker than we have in the past. But I do want to encourage people to share information and let me know what we're looking for today. And this is based on an article called 8 Ways to Build Collaborative Teams that we found in the Harvard Business Review by Grattan and Erickson. And it's an interesting way to look at teams. Our teams in cooperative extension are changing, and this is an article talking about teams are getting bigger, working more through distance technology, maybe aren't working on a daily basis together, and maybe bringing in some diverse views, diverse cultures. And these are some things we need to think about as we're working with teams here, whether it's in one of our associations or across the state or within one of the regions or districts. So this seems to be very, very timely. So wonder if we could just take quick, since there's just a few of us, quick time to introduce each other, maybe name, county, and maybe some experience in building successful teams in extension. Team maybe you're proud of, or a team you're working with or working on. So what I'd like to do is just, Bev, if you're able to talk on the phone, we'll start with you and go to Caitlin and then Kimberly and Lucy. And if you'd rather put that right in the chat, you can do that. I'm not sure what your microphone situation is. As we're waiting on Bev, I have Caitlin sent in a note, a new educator from Cattaraugus County. I'm hoping to gain guidance with my committees from this webinar. So we'll definitely, this all does apply with committees, and that's okay, Bev. You're not hooked up by microphone, that's why it's okay to chat if you want, either way. Shall we move on to Kimberly? Are you able to chat, Kimberly, or get on the line?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay,
Good
I'm
morning.
there. How are you?
I'm fine. How about you?
It's been a little crazy. I was on a phone call while this is starting, so I'm trying to get caught up.
Appreciate you jumping on.
So the question was?
Just if you could just introduce yourself. I'm not sure if you've met Caitlin. I think you probably know the other three on the line. And talk a little bit about the teams you work with, Bev.
So I'm the director here in Genesee County, and Caitlin, I think I may have met you. I'm not per positive, but I think I have, and I know Lucy. Hi, Lucy. So teams that I work with. You know, I think that's why I signed up, because I think the big team that I work with is the board, and I feel at this point, after almost 9 years in this job, I finally get how that's supposed to work. But I feel like I need some work with my program staff. I think part of the challenge is because we've lost so much staff over the years, I'm feeling like I don't really have a good leadership structure or team structure with my program staff. So I'm looking for some help with that.
Okay, great. And I'm expecting that everyone on the line is bringing their expertise, and Bev will add to the simple information I'm sharing from this article, and we can put our heads together. And I know you're an expert too, so you can add to everybody else's knowledge too. So that's Bev Mancuso from Genesee. Thank you, Bev. And
let me just say hi to Kimberly. I didn't realize that was the other Kimberly on there. So hi, Kimberly. Okay, I'm going to unplug now. Okay.
Thank you, Bev. I appreciate it. And it looks like Kiyoki Hansen has also joined us. So Kiyoki, we're just going through the list now, and we're going to just have a couple introductions. And if you're able to, I'm not sure if you're connected to microphone, Kiyoki, but we'll ask you to introduce yourself in just a bit, either through the chat box, which is right here with WebEx. You can select all participants and write in an introduction, Kiyoki, or feel free to get on the line. But before we do that, we'll go to Kimberly, and if Kimberly wants to introduce herself, if you're connected by microphone, Kimberly. And then we'll go to Lucy Joyce after that. Oh, Kimberly sent in the chat box. She can't unmute right now, and she's the Shared Business Network HR lead for the Western region, works on multiple teams across associations, my region, and the state, staff and potential or former staff. So think it just shows that we do all have quite a few teams that we're working on, some that are going along swimmingly and others that we may want to strengthen a bit. So that's Kimberly. Thank you very much. And then Lucy, do you want to say hello? Are you able?
I think so. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Thank you, Lucy.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. So I ditto, I'm Lucy Joyce, Executive Director in Orange County. I ditto a lot of what Beverly said in terms of the teams, although I'm a newer ED and have a lot to learn about the board. Although I'm glad to see some successes. We have, since I'm Executive Director, a very new administrative team with new issue leaders in all 3 areas, although they're all experienced staff, but coming together as a team. We're a fairly large association, and so I want to be able to help guide the issue leaders with their respective programmatic teams and then the whole administration team. And then, Kimberly, that's interesting with the SBN too, because that's a whole nother team, which we can be honest here, right? It's kind of difficult for me right now. So I look forward to, gaining some thoughts, insights, and some skills there. So thank you.
Great. Yeah, I think we are adding, for Kiyoki's benefit, who's an extension support specialist here on campus in IPM. And Kiyoki, if you want to introduce yourself, feel free to put that in the chat box or join us online. But for Kiyoki's benefit, we do have a new, almost a new layer across the state with these shared business networks and new teams that are forming and, again, having a wonderful success to some extent and also some challenges. So we do want to start the conversation around or continue the conversation around team building, and this article seemed to be a great place to start with that. So appreciate that, Lucy.
And this is Kiyoki Hansen. Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
So yeah, I'm with the Northeastern IPM Center, and I saw this opportunity and thought that would be helpful for me just to kind of learn some more about team building. The teams I'm working with are external teams mostly, so they aren't teams that I'm supervising. They're more teams that are formed through grants and funding that we provide through the center. But I think, some of those same challenges occur. So thinking, just getting some more information about how to make our particularly working groups and teams like that more effective, I thought would be helpful in my position at the Northeastern IPM Center.
Great. And Kiyoki, these teams, are they, do you tend to sit around the table here on campus, or are you connecting through distance technology?
The technology, and then also in-person meetings that happen on a yearly or bi-yearly basis.
So definitely not that daily contact, which I think is getting more and more common as we build teams and search for those specialized expertise. And so I think this may be of interest to you, and we welcome you. Thanks for joining us. So I'm going to move on to the next slide. And did we get everybody? I think we did. Move on to the next slide. And why do we need to build successful collaborative teams? And we're definitely moving from that I to we culture. We are wanting to leverage those organizational strengths as much as possible, and actually part of the purpose of the shared business networks in cooperative extension is to leverage those organizational strengths and leverage those resources, putting together some of the efforts that were happening in our 56 associations in New York City, and then trying to combine some of those efforts so we can look at HR and IT and finance and put some of those resources together. And as we think forward more about programming by region, which we've actually been doing for quite a long time with our district programming, but we do want to leverage all those strengths that we have. And then thinking about management teams being required to work together at many different levels. So we're going for that I to we. We're going to leverage those organizational strengths. New teams have management staff at all levels being required to work together. And as Kiyoki was just mentioning, we've got distance teams. We're meeting beyond our associations So there's definitely some challenges there, and we need to share those accountabilities outside the typical function. So it's not always about who's supervising and who's in charge, but it's how do we get things done by working together, building those high levels of trust and that participation. And then also teams are becoming larger, becoming more virtual, working through technology, whether it's among the associations, working statewide, or with the extension support specialists. Faculty and staff here on campus are definitely connecting more virtually, and we have more diversity. We need more diversity for success in these teams, and success on grants, success on pulling this all together. And then also teams are also more highly, and our staff are more highly educated with our focus on resource educators and making sure we've got masters out there in the program. So we definitely have, I think, as this the teams that the Harvard Business Review article looked at, our teams are also following that trend of that moving to the we culture and becoming more diverse and more distant, and trying to still maintain the same kind of teams we were able to connect with more when we were association-based and community-based in our own local associations. So that's where this information is coming from. So I'm going to move on, and this is Sullivan County, I think, Advancing Youth Development Team from a couple of years ago, if you're recognizing anyone who might be on the line. So just a quick introduction to the 5 stages of group formation. Probably many of you have seen this before, and I'll just cover it very briefly. And this has to do with the article that I've provided in the reference, Exploring the 5 Stages of Group Formation Using Adventure-Based and Active Learning Techniques by Jim Kane. And Jim Kane actually worked in, some of you may have worked with Jim Kane at conferences, at workshops. He was very involved with 4-H Youth Development Program, worked with our volunteers and staff, and so he's pulled some of the forming, storming, norming, performing, and transforming into his article, but also talked about some activities that might be helpful in these different stages. So when you're working with any team, you may want to think about these different stages. What team is this at, and if they've if you can diagnose that or need to step back and work on another, have we ever really formed properly, think about some of the activities that Jim Kane has recommended in his article. We'll be sure you have that connection. Again, you can look that up right online, and it's in the references at the back of the slides. So just quickly going through the forming. Forming is actually the get acquainted stage. Members learn who's who, where they fit into the plan. The state, you want to make sure that safe atmosphere established. And sometimes this is harder when a new team is forming and we've known each other well, or we've worked together for years, whether it's across associations or from campus to a county. So always making sure that you're building some of that trust there in the beginning. And this is where it's very important to have that leadership. Bev talked about leadership too, making sure that there's time when, as a leader, you've got to, we have to be sure we step up and make sure we're providing some strong direction right in the beginning, where it may not always be the way that we work with our teams or work with a team that's been established for a while, but really stepping up that leadership, even when you're a team member, contributing to that and looking to the leader or helping to provide or support that leader, giving some more high direction in that forming stage. And then we move to the storming, the conflict and controversy introduced. We may be seeing a little bit of that with our shared business networks, or some of them. Again, it's just the teams are getting a little more comfortable, and we're really working out of that forming stage into let's work out some of the things that aren't so clear to us, some of the conflict that's happening. So it doesn't always feel really great, but it is a stage that you want team members to work through. You're going to think about the resources that are out there, think about the requirements that are out there, and also thinking about the way people are working in a team. Some are being maybe possibly a little too quiet, kind of watching to see what happens, and there may be natural leaders or people who step up and might be dominating a group, whether it's within an association or across within a region, within a business network. So I think we always want to expect some of that storming, and many of you with experience in extension have seen that, have worked through it and seen the success at the end of the tunnel. So I think that's what we're all looking for. And in this case, with the 5 stages of group formation theory, the coach is really going to be, or the leader is actually going to be more of a coach than providing that real high directive. That high directive, there needs to be a change with that as the storming is happening, helping people work through, helping the people who are possibly a little more quiet in the group step up, say what they need to say, giving them that opportunity. So I think that's storming, and that can go on. In the article, one of the articles that I referenced, I think it's the Tim Haas article on teams, talks about that storming actually happening quite often if a team is meeting regularly after the first couple of weekends where people have kind of met the group, sort of saw that we're all coming together, we're establishing where we are, and then we start looking at resources and think about it over the weekend. Things might get a little more challenging at that point. But storming can also come further down the line, and it may take a little bit longer for some teams, and it may be something that also cycles through. But it is one of those where you feel a little more conflict, a little more controversy as you're going, working with a team. So again, the leader becomes the coach. Team members, again, are working closely to support that leader and do what they can to work through that conflict and controversy. So then there's norming, and that's a nice place. The bugs are starting to be worked out. Good things are happening. Cohesion, sharing, we're trust building, we're getting to know each other. The creativity is coming out in the group, which is a really positive thing for a group, and also that people are starting to acquire more skills working together. You're seeing the skills that people have acquired as they're working as a group, or maybe skills that people are working on, skills that people are bringing to the group might be coming out in this norming stage. And here's where the leader would be more supportive, would be looking for those positives, looking for those good things happening, looking for the skills in the individual team members, and trying to support the best things are happening in the group. So that's the norming stage, or how this article is defining the norming stage. You may have things to add to that also. And then go into the performing, providing the feeling of unity, the group identity, the interdependence, and the independence. And this is the most productive stage. It's the stage we all like to be at. The team has skills and resources to complete the task. Things are getting done. And then transforming is another one. You don't always see this in the stages of group formation, but this transforming, this 5th stage is added in here. Might be a group that's more temporary. The group is regrouping. Participants are thanked. It may be a group that's been formed for a temporary reason and is being ended for one reason or another. So this transforming might be where participants are thanked, tasks are completed, and people move on. And the leader would be responsible for providing that recognition and the conclusion for the group. So being sure that there is a clear conclusion if that's meant to be, but it also may be something that's happening with an ongoing group. You wouldn't necessarily look at that conclusion, but there also may be some time where the groups are regrouping. So there's just 5 stages to think about, and especially as a leader of a group, your role's not always going to be the same, although you tend to have a natural style, and you may have identified that as a group leader or a group participant. There's times as a leader with these, as a group is forming and new and storming, where you're going to use some of your other skills and make sure you're supporting the group by moving on. So that's 5 stages of group formation. Anybody have comments about that? Maybe some observations or thoughts?
This is Lucy. I'm wondering, I'm familiar with Ken Blanchard's sort of bell chart, and when you were mentioning the role of the leader, it sort of struck me that that kind of goes hand in hand with, first the leader needs to be really supportive when you're forming, and then, it's sort of a different kind of support as the individual or the group is knowing a little bit more about their skills, and then when they're functioning well, you play sort of more a different role and things like that.
Mm-hmm. So can you talk a little bit more about the bell curve so we have a little picture of that?
So I understand I learned it originally for individuals, like for a supervisor, and what does a new, say, employee go through, and then later on read more about it works for groups too. So similarly to what you said, but you start off so what does the bell curve look like? Super high enthusiasm but no skill would be when, a new employee comes in. Obviously, I'm exaggerating, but and so the role of the leader is very directive because they have to learn what it is they have to do in this new job, or it could be an experienced person with a new task. And then the person starts learning a little bit more, but now all of a sudden they're less enthusiastic because they realize, wow, this is really big, this is really hard, this is whatever. And so the leader is still directive, but now needs to be emotionally supportive. And then as they get to what you identify sort of as the norming stage, the employee is functioning much better, knows their job, and is emotionally, feeling more comfortable. And so the supervisor's role would change to be more of a coach and just kind of being there, sort of an advisor, but a lot less directive and not needing the same emotional support. And then as they sort of come down, they're giving even less direction because the person is, again, more comfortable with their job. And at the end, then they should be pretty independent. But as soon as there's a new task, your experienced employee, you might have to go back to being highly directive again and or emotionally supportive, and that kind of throws people.
Mm-hmm.
Because the supervisor's like, well, they're experienced. Why can't they handle this new thing,
Right, right. But a new change in what needs to be done, or a new change, even a new team member, could kind of kick things back a little bit.
Yeah, so I was kind of thinking as you were talking that while it worked for an individual, it works for groups too.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, a new team member, or they have to deal with a new problem that they didn't have before.
Absolutely. It's really all about relationship building, whether it's one person or a whole group. It's stepping up and doing what you can as a leader or a team member to support the process of the new person coming in or that new group being successful. Great. I appreciate you sharing that, Lucy. Any other comments? I'm going to move on to getting to know the group that we have. And I like this activity, and as I was reading about it, again, it's a Jim Kane from Exploring the 5 Stages of Group Formation Using Adventure-Based and Active Learning Techniques. And this is, I like to do this activity when we're all together, and actually when the Shared Business Network leads got together in October, we had a little mini version of this presentation, and we did all kind of line up and do this. So this is an activity you can do when you're running a workshop or working with a team, working with your staff association, or and again, it's appropriate. Jim Kane is suggesting this for that formation stage. So maybe it's also when there's new members coming into that stage or new staff people joining your staff team. So this is called Which Side of the Road You're On. So I had to turn it into, as I said, this was one of the first webinars we did back in 2011. So we turned it into a poll so we can get to know a little bit about you. So this is group participation, and I'm going to open the poll, and it's called what side of the road are you on? So it's asking people to pick, do you like this or this? And the idea with the what side of the road you're on, you want to think about there's a big truck coming down that road, picking one side or the other. Sometimes you're not always going to feel like there's a side or the other. It's saying there's not a bad side. We're giving you a couple different options with these examples. And you can pull in examples that are very appropriate to your what you're working on in the workshop, again, to add to the adventure base and to the active learning techniques. And you can also build in time to discuss. So once you have your line of people, so I think of it just line up facing me in a group in the middle of the road. I'm going to ask you the example. You'll step to one side of the road or other. You'll make one choice or the other, as you will in the poll. And then at that point, you'll also be able to promote discussion. So our first example is, do you like vanilla or chocolate? And I'll put that poll up in just a bit. And then as you select one or the other, the group on one side can talk about why they like vanilla or why they don't like chocolate. The other side can talk about chocolate and the virtues of chocolate, and this promotes some of that bonding and seeing these commonalities, but it also could be a conversation across the road on a topic that might be obviously much larger than vanilla or chocolate, but it could promote some conversation. It also may lead to further conversations later where people say, oh, I see you got off on that side of the road, and why maybe are you thinking of choosing this rather than the other side? So it's a way to form groups to get people to get to know each other, and I'm going to see what we can do here with a poll. So set this up, and I'll just have you go through the questions and then we'll talk about them. So I think if I hit this button, it'll open the poll, and hopefully you can see what side of the road are you on. Do you like chocolate or vanilla? So hopefully these click for you. So you pick one choice from each question. The other is about your favorite pet. Do you like dogs or cats? Your working preference. Do you like to work alone or do you like to work with teams? It asks a little bit about experience with teams. And I'll let you read through those. I'll give you a couple minutes to do that, so take your time. Oh, and we've got a couple people who have joined us, Patty Kennedy and Sharon Hancock. Welcome. Sorry, my participant list, you were blocked off of that, but we welcome you. So jump right in there. And it looks like we've worked our way through the questions, and I think we have responses from everybody. Appreciate that, all the way down the line, and then we'll take a look at the results. Kind of long, but I wanted to get some questions also that were relevant to the presentation today, so we added those in. So I'm going to, it looks like everyone's had a chance to chime in. We'll close the poll. Oh, waiting for participants to submit responses. I have 10 seconds here, and then I can hit the poll results so we can take a look and talk a little bit more about those. All right. So hopefully you can see the poll results here. So do you like chocolate or vanilla? So it looks like chocolate is the 6 out of 1. How about your favorite pet? And there's a 2 for dogs and 4 for cats. And showing this is quite a unique group. I use this example quite a bit. Usually the dogs overrun. I tend to like both. And someone chose no answer. It was hard to get out of the road or prefer no pets, which is perfectly fine also. The working preference, do you like to, oh, I don't have the full thing. Do you like to work as a team? Do you like to work alone, or do you like to work as a team? So we've got 2. The first one is as a team. Get that right. Team leader experience or team member only, I guess was the first. Team player or prefer to work alone. So some 5 prefer to work alone. Experience with teams, it looks like experience with teams. Do you have a team? Have you mostly worked? Oh, sorry. Team leader experience, have you mostly worked as a team member? Everybody's had team leader experience here. To stretch out my questions. Understanding of teams, it looks like most of you have seen the 5 stages, have not heard of them before, so it's maybe a little new concept to you. And thinking of the main current team, is your current team forming? Is your current team beyond forming? So thinking of your current teams, we've got about half and half in the group. Some of you are dealing with those teams that are still forming, and some are beyond the forming, thinking of the stages. So those of you that are beyond the forming, could somebody give an example maybe of what stage you're thinking as you think about your team they might be working on?
This is Bev. Can you hear me?
Yep. Thanks, Bev.
Okay. So even though I had said earlier I felt like I needed to work on my program team leadership, our programs are performing, so I'm just, that's why I answered that. That's what I was thinking of.
That's great. Good. How about one of the teams that are forming? Any challenges happening? Are you seeing the high enthusiasm? Are you the leader or not, and is the leader taking on that directive role?
This is Lucy. One of our teams that's forming is our Capital Campaign Committee. We have a huge project, and we now have 2 honorary co-chairs and a working chair, but it's a $7.5 million capital campaign that we're just beginning, and it's really at the forming stage. And even though we have these other chairs, I'm still trying to work out who, like, obviously I still need to be a leader in it. And so I'd say we're definitely at the forming stage. A lot of enthusiasm, a lot of energy, and not a lot is happening yet, which is making me nervous.
So, Lucy, did you say you've got a chair separate from yourself?
Yes, we have a working chair who's got a lot of ability and skills. I'm a little worried about her time commitment, or time availability, I should say. Yep. And then we have 2 co-chairs, too. So Great. We don't even have the committee completely together yet. And we haven't identified who, we only have some people identified for leaders of, or chairs of specific groups, like an events committee, we have a chair for that. We have a marketing chair, but like we don't have an alumni chair yet. We don't have different things like that.
So capital campaigns are a huge effort, but as kind of the leader of all the leaders, it may be some of that, taking on that direction as you're working with the different committee heads and co-chairs and working chair.
Right, and a board member just met with me after our reorganizational meeting last night and, pointed out that I need to set the stage on a couple of these areas, regardless of other people are identified as chairs. And the scary part is I know she's right.
Right. And you're worried about your time commitment.
Yeah, and I'm really excited about the Harold Craft leadership because, like, wow, it's really hitting me.
Absolutely. Great. Good. You can do this. I think once you have the basic, we have the basic principles in mind, and you've been doing this for years too, Lucy, working with extension and committees. But sometimes it's good to have that reminder of, I might need to step in here a little bit, or encourage your co-chairs and working chairs to do that sort of thing. Very good examples. Thank you both. So I see a note from Caitlin, struggling coming into volunteer-based committees that have already been developed and are not used to having leaders for each program committees. Oh, Caitlin, that's a good example. So when you come in new yourself, and as the extension educator, you've got a certain responsibility there to make sure these committees are happening. But what happens when the committees are norming or performing and maybe not looking back to you as the leader? So I think there's still some value in thinking, Caitlin, about the 5 stages of group formation. And as you're coming in, you're kind of maybe cycling through that a little bit. But it's also, sometimes there's value in working with if there is a co-chair, working with that person and taking on a little more directive role, maybe on the side. That's one suggestion I would have. But I'd also like to open it up to Patty or Sharon or Lucy or Bev, Kiyoki, Kimberly, if anybody else wants to. So we have a new staff person working with some volunteer-based committees, have already been developed, are not used to having leaders. Any advice for Caitlin?
Well, I guess my first advice would be tread lightly at the beginning. I think the worst thing you can do is go in and pretend that you have all the answers. You have to go in and listen, but don't listen for too long.
That's great advice.
I agree with what you just said. This is Patty.
Hi, Patty.
Hi. I just started working with Cornell Cooperative Extension County.
Could you speak just a little bit louder? I'm having challenges hearing you.
Is that any better?
Thank you. Perfect.
Okay. I just started working for Cornell Cooperative Extension, Dutchess County, about a month ago.
Welcome.
So, thank you. So what I've been doing, the same thing, I've been stepping back and watching the different groups, the different committees, and just kind of forming just a perception of how they run here. And I figured with the new year starting now, I can get more involved and interject any type of comments or suggestions I have now.
That's great. Yeah, I think that, Bev, that's wonderful advice. I do wonder about the the opportunity to meet with co-chairs without the full group, and again, learning, asking the questions you need to ask so you feel like you have a better feel for the whole team. I think that's what I would add on to that. But tread lightly is always good advice. Thank you all for that example. Let's move on to the qualities required for success can also undermine success. So some of the challenges I think we've come across is thinking about the way our teams have needed to change with our shared business networks, with our working across the county association lines, making sure we have that relationship from campus to the associations and vice versa, working from the associations with our extension support specialists, with our extension associates, with our faculty members. So we've really, even more than ever, had to kind of beef up what kind of teams we're working on and reaching out a little more through distance rather than knowing the daily life of everybody who's sitting around the staff association table. So there's things that obviously we need to step up and step into and think about because our teams tend to be larger, and that's what this article is based on, this 8 ways to build collaborative teams. Teams are larger, we're more virtual, we're diverse, and we're composed of highly educated specialists, and increasingly crucial with the challenging projects to get what we need to get done by reaching out and working across technology. So that's just the way today's environment is, but it is 4 characteristics that also tend to make it hard for teams to get anything done. So I've got a whiteboard here. I'm going to see if this works. So thank you for your patience ahead of time. So I want to think about some challenges with our extension teams, with our teams in extension, and see if you could we need to do a test here. So you should be able to, I think you have all the rights, I've set it up and tested, click on the T for the text, and then click down into this is our virtual whiteboard, and select the letter T above and type your reply here. So let's think about maybe some challenges with forming teams in extension, forming teams, forming teams in general, forming teams that might be far away. So before we look at the 8 ways to build collaborative teams, if you could maybe put some, I added trust in there as a test. But I think if you hit the T, is anyone able to write in there and think about the challenges with extension teams or opportunities maybe with building these extension teams? Time, commitment, communication, shared understanding. Perfect, that's a great response. Thank you. And it looks like it's working. I love the Genesee picture on that last slide.
That is a cool picture. I know Kim and I were talking and we were saying how many people are gone that were in that picture.
Oh, yes. Yep. Actually, I have a couple pictures that I have in of teams here that have changed quite a bit also. Making sure the right stakeholders are included. That's a really great example. Some of our extra challenges as we're working, we definitely want to have our input from community, input from stakeholders as we're working on grants, as many of us are, including Kyoki, thinking about the reviewers, thinking about the people who are going to give us more grants, but also the stakeholders and the audiences that we're reaching out to. So making sure we have the right stakeholders are included. These are great. Understanding. So having a feel, I think that might be having a feel for the the group that you're working with, the listening to audiences. This is great. So these are some examples, and time is, Lucy mentioned that earlier also, the whole, nobody has time for all of these committees, but it's the way we get things done, and it's getting people to commit, making it as productive as possible. So these are all really great examples. I'm going to move back. Thank you very much. Move back to the slides. So these qualities that are required for success definitely can also undermine success because it's not always easy. As we think about these large teams, we think about virtual teams, think about diverse views and backgrounds, which we know we need to make things successful. We also think about the challenges that come along with those. So tend to have some challenges sometimes with the way people are committing, the way people follow through with what they need to do. If they tend to have more diverse backgrounds, more diverse views. Again, if you're not seeing somebody in the coffee room every day, you may be a little less committed to following through on what you've said you'd do, hopefully, but that could be a challenge with a team. Also, I thought this was kind of interesting from the 8 ways to build collaborative teams. Highly educated, increasingly specialized team members. Complex challenges need specialized skills, highly educated team members. But the higher the educational level, the more challenging collaborative appears for them. So just something to look out for. And the proportion of strangers on the team, the greater the diversity of background and education levels, the less likely team members are to share knowledge or exhibit other collaborative behaviors. So there's definitely, I think, a change in maybe the groups that we used to gather, and some more challenges with building the trust, more challenges with getting the commitment, and having more unproductive conflicts. So just a warning to look out for that. As we know we need these crucial team qualities, we also may come across some challenges that have been less common than in the past. So proceeding
Kim,
with
can I just...
Please do.
Kim, can I make a comment or ask a question on the last slide?
Mm-hmm. Go back.
Where you said, like, highly educated, increasingly specialized team members. One thing I've also seen is the more highly educated and specialized people are, sometimes they are more of a challenge organizationally to work with, follow through, and yeah, let's just leave it at that. Is that just me, or if other people seen that?
I'd like the rest of the group to respond. I know Kiyoki's here on campus, probably works with quite a few faculty. Other people seeing that?
This is Lucy, and absolutely, I agree. Sometimes you're on campus and you're just sort of amazed when you're sitting around the table with some faculty. Another faculty member who seemed more down to earth used to say, yeah, they sit there and contemplate their navel. And honestly, some of it, you're trying to come up with, some sort of solution or discussion or program, and like, you don't even know where their head is. They just need a little reality check.
That's tough. We've worked with some wonderful faculty members. We have a lot of cooperation between campus and county, but there's definitely some differences and individual differences, whether it's a faculty member or a extension administration staff member or a educator. Yeah, I think those are things that we want to look out for, but there are some challenges there. Any other?
This is a little bit less of an issue now, I think, but early on when we had a whole lot more faculty who came out into the field, I can remember being guided by a longtime extension person, Guy Burns, that you need to know as an educator or agent then who were the faculty that were your personal resource and who or which were the ones that you'd actually bring out into the field, and they weren't always the same.
Because there's people with different skill levels, and yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Good point. So this all does really tie in with our work in extension, for sure. Our work with faculty, our work with educators. we just have a whole bunch of challenging people here, but they're also wonderful and committed and knowledgeable and highly educated, and so there's so many pluses that we've got to just learn to, I think, get the work done and get along and know that we've got some diverse perspectives or diverse working styles and make the most of any teams that we're part of. So thanks for that insight there. Good point. So we'll move on again, and what can we do to strengthen an organization or team's ability to perform collaborative tasks? I think we've covered some of this as we've talked, but let's see if there's other things before we look at the 8 ways, we'll take just 2 minutes to think about what we can do in Cornell Cooperative Extension to strengthen a team's ability to collaborate. And then after 2 minutes, we'll put up the whiteboard and we'll take a look at those. So we're looking at, think about what we can do in CCE to strengthen a team's ability to collaborate, especially think about all these new situations and new teams. So we'll put up the second whiteboard, and I'll welcome you to think about that and just throw up some answers. What can we do to strengthen a team's ability to collaborate? So think about your local associations, your here on campus, your teams, your grant writing teams, your shared business networks. What can we do to strengthen a team's ability? And just looking to get some of those points, and then we'll compare them to the 8 ways to build collaborative teams.
Kim, how do I write into this?
If you click on the T, which is the letter,
yeah,
and then click on the whiteboard. So the T is up in the menu.
Yeah.
That'll give you your font, and then click on the whiteboard wherever you like. And I see somebody's put in goals for the team. Is that working for you? There we go.
Thank you.
I'll give you just a minute to get things entered in there. It's certainly not newsprint, but it's an idea. It's a tool. Very good. Okay, we'll just take 1 more minute. These are very good. Excuse me. Okay, so I asked you to what can we do to strengthen the team's ability to collaborate. These are really great responses. So the shared, consistent communication is a key. Goals for the team, we want those to be cleared and outlined and understood. So making sure that's one of the first things you do as you're forming that team when there's high enthusiasm and some high leadership. Let's get those goals set out. What do we want to accomplish here? Honesty is very important in any kind of relationship building, whether it's one-on-one or a whole group. Willingness to be flexible. We're looking, just a side note, with professional development as we look at a framework. It was goals for the 21st century for extension educators, and flexibility was just so high on the list. Whether we're hiring for that or doing what we can to support that, train for it, encourage it, flexibility is one of those top, as well as working with a team. top pieces that we want to build into our framework for professional development or hiring practices, looking for that flexibility. Trust is so important, clear roles and expectations for each individual and for the team, and then clear understanding of the team. So let's get to know people who are involved and what makes people tick and what builds on that enthusiasm, gets people to follow through. Staying connected, again, that consistent communication is really important. And then learning what the other's goals are. So again, it's all about forming the relationship, having open communication, making sure you've got clear goals, part of that open communication. And there's going to be some changes, so you need that flexibility, that trust. So these are really great what we can do in general to strengthen a team's ability to collaborate. And we talk about a team, this is also that on those teams working with one other person. Great things to, again, build relationships, get along, get things done. So I appreciate that. We're going to go back to our slide, and then we're going to move on to see what the 8 factors that the Harvard Business Review article identified. And some of those that we talked about today are maybe a little more detailed than what this article addressed, but I think they all relate to investing in those signature relationship practices. The 8 factors are right there. You can read through those, and then I'll move ahead and we'll talk about how they're fall under a couple different categories. So go ahead and take a look at the 8 factors that lead to success. You may have seen these in the article ahead of time.
Kim, can you say more about number 3?
Absolutely. So we'll go into some more detail once we get through these 8, and that gift culture has a lot to do with the mentoring, and we really haven't talked about that in our discussion today with the input, but that gift culture is, it's setting that example, it's being a mentor, it's being, expecting others to step in and help out new staff or new teams. So it's the leadership setting that example, and this is how we do things, and if there's a new staff member there, I'm going to reach out, help them out, and I'm going to expect the rest of the team to reach out and help them out. That's how I look at gift culture, and we'll look a little bit further as we go ahead.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So we've got these general 8 factors that lead to success, and this is based on research that was done and submitted to the Harvard Business Review by Linda Grattan and Tamara Erickson, and they've looked at the largest, most complex teams and what was working for the teams that were working effectively, most effectively, and these were the 8 points that came out of that. So when we look at these, they basically fall under 4 different general categories: executive support, HR practices, strength of the team leader, and the structure of the team itself. So there's quite a few things that happen before the team gathers around the table, including getting the team together, but it's also a matter of creating that culture, I think, is what this shows. So we'll split it up into these 4 different categories. And the executive leadership support, so what can you as an executive director do? What can you as a SBN lead or as a research support specialist leading a grant or pulling together a team to carry on to help a grant get accomplished, get written, get funded, get carried out. So as that leadership, as that executive, you want to invest in those signature relationship practices. And this is where the leaders would encourage collaboration by making visible investment in building and maintaining social relationships. So encouraging, it's not something that's interrupting the workday when there is a coffee hour that happens. I know some of our CCE associations do that, maybe some of the departments on campus where they have a regular once a week get together in the coffee room. One example of investing in signature relationship practices is actually the floor plan that we're working on. So this is when the team is all on one site, thinking about actually having a kitchen or having a coffee room. Example where you might encourage mingling and networking, because a lot happens in those daily conversations. There may be ways to do that technologically also. We know there are Skype, IM, that sort of thing. but thinking about an association office, thinking about a room for a kitchen, a break room, investments made in the program work teams is another example of investing in signature relationship practices. So our program work teams have our faculty, have our extension associates, our extension support specialists working with our associations, our extension educators, and putting some funds in or some kind of dedicating that space and structure to make sure we have program work teams, and encouraging faculty and field staff relationships. So we've had several versions of the program work team. We used to have a faculty agent committee when I first started in extension, and these were just places to let's support the relationship building around, maybe it's around science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, so around the STEM program. To get those people together, but actually making that part of our structure of our association. So that would be the investing in signature relationship practices. The other is modeling collaborative behavior. Again, this is what we want the managers to do. This is our executive directors. This is our chairs of committees pulling together people working on grants. Model the collaborative behavior. So when managers collaborate or are perceived to collaborate themselves, teams within an organization tend to collaborate well. Maybe you've seen examples of this. You can feel free to share that. But it's definitely if our leadership is moving ahead, not offering professional development, not offering times to gather, think of our executive leadership conferences, not offering time where there's let's talk about this, let's work together on an issue, let's figure out how shared business networks would work the best. When we make those opportunities, when leaders make those opportunities, it's going to trickle down through the whole association, through the whole team, through the whole grant writing committee, to also make that time and collaborate and help each other out. So you want team members to learn the best way to get things done through cooperation and working together. So it's just, that's part of creating that culture of support. And then the last thing under this executive/leadership support, and I almost feel like some of these could go in different categories also, but again, let's look to the leadership. Let's make sure that if you are serving as a leader in one of these committees or as an executive director, thinking about creating the GIFT culture. So this is explained best in the 8 ways to build collaborative teams, and it's when the managers are acting as mentors and coaches and supporting mentoring and coaching throughout the organization. So we think of opportunities to mentor new staff or train volunteers to mentor other volunteers. This is really creating that GIFT culture. It's a good thing to give of your time to bring new people in, bring new volunteers in, establish a cooperative culture. And this isn't unlike, I actually think it's pretty similar to building the collaborative behavior, where people build the networks and they need, that they need to get things done. Others in the organization and related programs help people build networks. So this, I think this GIFT culture, maybe there's other examples that you're thinking of. So what I'd like you to do is take a couple minutes again, think about a specific example from Cornell Cooperative Extension or from your work of that GIFT culture we have, just to make sure I haven't confused you totally. And I think we can just jump on the phone if you've got some good examples of that. So Kiyoki's going to be leaving us. Take care, Kiyoki. Thanks for joining us. I have to get off to another event. So, so if you could just think about some other examples of GIFT culture that you've seen when managers act as mentors and coaches, coaching throughout the organization. Oh, click down to a whiteboard there. Looks like my presentation went away. Let me open that one more time. See if we can bring it back. So if you want to just jump on the call or put something in the chat as I reopen the presentation. Any other thoughts of GIFT cultures that you see in your association or between campus and county? So I know one example might be let me find their page. Let's see. With the gift culture might be the State 4-H Association has a structured mentoring program where they're welcoming new staff. I don't know if they still do, but they would give a welcome kit that had maybe some of the definitions that are related to 4-H youth development. I think there was a beanie bag there just to say welcome, list of resources, a little bit of paperwork, not too much, but just something fun that made it official and welcome people into the association. And I think of that as an example of gift culture.
That sounds so 4-H, doesn't it, Kim?
It does sound like 4-H. I may have been a little involved with that too. So,
no,
but it's also
great.
something we want to think about for mentoring everyone in the association. Any other examples of gift culture come to mind?
Would you consider SBN a gift culture?
So I think it would, or modeling that collaborative behavior, or possibly even the shared business network may be an investment in signature relationship practices, so it's setting up that structure. So it might be a little bit of everything, and others may have different feelings about that. Any comments on, is the shared business network a gift culture?
Well, I think we're still storming down here, at least from my perspective, so we're not there yet.
I think a good example within the shared business network may be the relationships with the leads, the HR leads or the finance leads, working closely with, say, Melissa Reef and Brenda Jolie and Connie Kahn with HR, and maybe Betty Sweetland with the connections with the leads for finance. I think that might be
I'm actually seeing where the finance people especially are kind of talking to each other, you know, a new person with experienced person on simple things for reassurances. You know, am I really doing this right?
Mm-hmm. Great. So that system of leads becomes here's someone who can also help you out. So I think that's a good example. Very good example. I think that was you, Patty. Great. And then let's see. We'll go back to, and then looking on the human resource practices, this may be not part of your position, but it's something that can be, and maybe it is, but something that can be built into your human resource practices within, again, your association, or as you're thinking about pulling together a grant committee or a volunteer committee. But what I thought was really interesting is the, under the teach skills related to collaboration, and we try to do some of that within professional development, organizational development. The most formal HR practices appear to have little impact on a team's productivity or innovation, including selection, performance management, promotion, reward, training, and formal mentoring programs. So we're not saying that's all that is not worth it, but as far as impact on a team's productivity, it has less to do. Two factors that improve team performance are teaching skills needed for collaboration. So that's ensuring that team members have the skills related to collaboration, such as how to build relationships, appreciate others, communicate well, and I think communication is a big one, and resolving conflicts creatively. That helps people to work well, better in teams than maybe are we hiring the right person. We may not be looking at certain things as hiring, and maybe some of our practices are truly contributing to that more than what this study had found, but we definitely want to focus on teaching those skills needed for collaboration. Part of that is just thinking about teams and how they're structured and how, as a leader, we can support our teams in their different stages. But I'm speaking to the choir here. You're looking at the webinars that are being offered. If there's something you want more of, let us know that. We are working on lining up, or we have on the calendar, a crucial conversations, how to talk in conversations that maybe are a little more personal, a little more high stakes. So we're looking at bringing in a presenter to do that and kind of build on that. And even the some of the executive directors and staff are being involved with the Harold Craft Leadership. So some of that is just trying to contribute to those skills related to collaboration. So we want to invest in that, and I think the way we've been trying to focus as an organizational development team is really seeing how we can make a difference with professional development related to let's build our teams, let's get our teams working effectively, and adding whatever we can to that by building those skills. So I thought that was kind of interesting as they compared it to normal hiring procedures, that sort of thing, that we can really strengthen our teams by encouraging more professional development. And then supporting a strong sense of community, and many of the associations I know have done this. One great example is where Jeannie Darling in Delaware County worked with Carol Devine in the Division of Nutritional Sciences, and they started a program called Small Steps to Success. I know this has been featured at conferences that I've attended, where it's actually a work site intervention that promotes healthy eating and increased walking. I don't know if this is going on, but it helps the bond with colleagues, promotes that healthy eating, gets people to participate together, and when you take a walk at lunchtime, other conversations obviously come up, and that's going to build that association team. So that's an example of supporting that strong sense of community, and as a leader, Jeannie brought that on and encouraged it and made time for it, encouraged staff to take lunch hours and actually do something to contribute to their healthy lifestyle. Any other examples out there maybe of the strong sense of community or different things you've done in your associations or departments?
This is a little bit off, but one of the things I notice is that when we're engaged in a major event, whatever the event might be, all the staff come together, and it's so great. No pointing of fingers, no, it doesn't matter what happened, everybody pitches in, and it's really great. But then, I swear, it could be the very next day, you know, we kind of go back to the doldrums of maybe some backbiting or people being discouraged because others aren't doing their job right. And I sure wish we could stay a little longer at those terrific successes when we just look like a beautiful rose, you know, and are, not just look like it. So I always try to celebrate those, you know, successes and acknowledge them, but I wish it lasted a little longer.
Yeah. Any thoughts from the group on that? I'm thinking of a couple different things. Anybody?
This is Bev. I'm kind of struggling with how to respond. I mean, I think it really comes down to balance, and I think that's one thing we at Extension are horrible at, having any kind of balance between our professional role and being able to be a human being, just because there's so much that we're called to do. And I think I agree with you, Lucy, and I think that's probably why I'm a lot more, Kimberly, don't throw up when I say this, but I think I like to make this a lot more fun atmosphere out here so that we can try and have more of the balance longer. And one of the things I'm remembering that happened when I came here, Kimberly was new here too, there used to be this event called the Ice Cream Sandwich Talk. Ooh. And that's what would happen. People would be out in the front yard here in teams, like slinging ice cream sandwiches back and forth at each other. And I mean, it was crazy and it was goofy, but you know what? People still want to eat ice cream sandwiches in this building. None of those people worked here, but they knew about it. So I mean, I guess that's my long point of, I mean, I'm like a really firm believer that I don't want this place to feel like a pressure cooker, and I think that if we can make them feel like it's fun to come here, then you can kind of have that balance of that team excitement when you have a big, huge event that everybody enjoys at the same time.
So
does that make any sense?
I think I think what I'm hearing is being out there in the community, having some exciting event going on. There's fun things. You're talking to people. We tend to have a lot of, I think, extroverts in Extension. They're enjoying the interaction with the community and each other. And once you get back to the office, it's not always that same energizing feel. So I think it's something to look at in the association. I don't think it's an uncommon thing, Lucy, for that to be happening. It also could just be people worn out from pulling off a 2-week county fair or whatever the event happens to be. But yeah, how do we hang on to that? And maybe it's maybe it is a little bit more. We tried to build in here a little bit, having like bringing in some chili for lunch, and people can bring whatever they want, and then we gather together. And we've actually sat, when we've had smaller groups in the conference room, had pizza or chili or soup or whatever it happens to be, and we've gone on YouTube and looked at just funny videos that people know of. We try to be as appropriate as possible, but just enjoy sharing and laughing. And we've also done a little activity here. One of the first lunches we did, well, it was towards the end of last year, is I had everyone fill out a card of some fact that not everyone might know about them. And we were eating, and then we took the cards and we put them up, didn't attach your name to it, but who actually had a dinner with a real-life princess, and who has lived with has been haunted by a ghost, and things that don't normally come up in conversation, but trying to build in that fun. And then we tried to guess who was who, and then talked about it and laughed about it, of course, because some really funny things come out. Who was maybe worked on a ranch for 3 years out in Colorado. So kind of fun to get to know people, but also try to maintain that level of interaction when we're back in the office. So I think all this is part of supporting that strong sense of community and contributing when we can to the team effort. So Lucy, I'm not sure if we helped, but maybe something to talk about with the team also, or maybe you need to just get a bunch of ice cream sandwiches and have a toss.
Yeah, that sounds great. Thanks.
Like it, yeah. Love ice cream sandwiches. Okay, and then a couple other categories these 8 points are built under is the strengths of the team leader. So, and this has to do with assigning the team leader, a team leader that is both task and relationship oriented. There's been a lot of, there's been research, there's been debates about what's better. Been debate about whether a leader should be task-oriented, clarifying those objectives, outlining the dimensions of the task, monitoring, providing feedback, or whether it's better if a leader is relationship-oriented, so creating the environment of trust and goodwill so people are more likely to share knowledge. But both are the key to successful leading of a team. And I think it goes back to the whole formation of a team. So at the beginning, when you're forming, a task orientation proves to be better, yet a relationship orientation, once the work is in progress, works best. So keeping that long-term team that tends to be performing, tends to be norming, tends to be accomplishing things, and continuing to work on those relationships towards the end also, or towards the middle of a team being successful might be a key there. So look at that team leader when you are a team leader, thinking about coming in being more task-oriented in the beginning. And again, this comes in when there's new people forming in your team that might be established, but also thinking about relationship orientation, making sure you're supporting that relationship as the team starts to find their own way and get things accomplished. And then just thinking about when you're putting a team together or as you have a team, this was a fun one for me, is building on heritage relationships. And I've been an extension for 26 plus years now, and it's really great to have at least a few people who work well together on a team, and probably all of you know this, but I kind of like that idea of the heritage relationships. So people are willingly share knowledge and tasks when they know somebody. And according to this article, research shows that if 20 to 40% of a team was already connected, already well connected, there was a strong collaboration from the start. So while we want to bring in diversity, new views, that's the other 60%, 60 to 80%, that's nice to have a core that knows each other, knows how to work well together, knows how to get things accomplished together. And so new teams, especially those with a high proportion of strangers, sometimes might find it a little more difficult to collaborate. And it definitely have that trust building need for a brand new team coming together. Sometimes you don't have a choice, but if you're forming the team, might be something to think about. Let's get some successful, positive people on there and move from there. And that may be really clear to everybody and a real simple concept, but I think sometimes we tend to shake things up maybe a little too much, and it's good to tie back and celebrate relationships that do work well together. And we probably naturally do that, but I think it's good to know it's okay to do to bring back people who have had successes in the past to get things done, and introduce some new staff to also build that. And then the other thing with team formation and structure is understanding role clarity and task ambiguity. So after we built the trust, we're going to, some things that we can do is just making sure we're really clear. Cooperation definitely increases when roles of individual team members are clearly defined right at the beginning, but then the team is allowed to determine how to achieve the task. So sometimes people may think a little different about that, but when individuals can work independently with a clear idea of their role, it saves time, not having to negotiate roles or to protect turf. That might be a little bit the things that are happening there, but teams will then more likely spend time collaborating if the team task is not predetermined and requires some creativity. So does that help, just making sure people, if you can say, here's what needs to get done, you're going to be the one to work on this, here's your role clarity, and but you can figure out how to make that all come together as a team. So I think that's another nice hint there is, again, it's making sure you're clarifying those goals and roles as you're forming a team and helping a team get things done. So we're getting down to our last 10 minutes. I only have a couple other slides, and we'll move ahead. But those are basically breaking down those 8 ways to collaborate. And I should open it up for any of you to make any comments or questions at this point, and then we'll get into a little bit of summary.
I just want to, Lucy, clarify, Ken. So what the role needs to be really clear, defined, but the tasks should not. That the leader needs to be able to identify the tasks.
And I think how you want to get that, understand what you need to get done and how you actually want to go about that. Having that flexibility, letting people determine they know what they need to accomplish and how they're going to get that done, whether as a group or as an individual, is where you would have that bit of ambiguity. So go ahead, professional, and it's probably what you do already, Lucy. But thinking about that is follow through with that. Here's what needs to be done. You figure out how to do it. And it might be pulling somebody else in, and that's perfectly fine, but that seems to be where the more cooperation happens. So people aren't struggling to protect their, I'm professional development and I do the webinars, so, everybody else go away. No, we would never say that. But to think about your role is this, and we're going to have somebody else come in with logic models and talk about that, and how we're going to put that all together is up to the team, but we're each going to contribute pieces. And that's where they're seeing more collaboration happen.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. All right. So we'll just get into a little bit of summary as we look at this article on 8 ways to build the collaborative teams. Think about how we can encourage highly effective teams, and we know that it takes a long-term investment, as most of the things we do in Cornell Cooperative Extension or any of the committees that we work on. Collaborating takes a long-term investment. We want to create that culture in our whole statewide system, also in our local associations or whatever committees we're building. We've got an investment in relationships, and we're going to collaborate, and that's how we're going to get things done, and our leaders are going to be the examples. And then we do understand that we've got some challenges with teams today, the fact that there are larger numbers, that there's virtual connections. We have diversity that we seek. We want those points of view. We want different ways of looking at things so we can keep growing and changing and meeting the needs of the community. And we also have more expertise than ever as far as schooling goes and experience. We've got teams that are really highly skilled, and sometimes some of these virtues of these teams create some challenges for us. And then we want to think back to those 8 factors discussed. And we want to promote cooperation and collaboration with today's teams solving these complex problems. So again, we think about the 8 points. You've seen the slide again. Investing, modeling, creating that GIFT culture. So that leader has a lot to do with the culture that's set and whether teams are really teams, are helping out each other as they do at a big event, pitching in. That's a great sign, great leader, great culture that's been developed. And are we also teaching skills related to collaboration? And do people have those communication skills when things might get a little more tense, might have conversations that have some high stakes and real, maybe some personal ties? You want to make sure people can work through how to talk to each other and how to address challenges rather than just pretend they're not happening, but work through those productively and respectfully. So we do want to continue to promote professional development in that line, experiences, meetings, maybe address a topic at a staff meeting, and then also supporting that strong sense of community, whether it's an ice cream sandwich toss or a YouTube viewing, and we never go too long with that, just a quick lunch activity, or getting to know each other and get some of your best team builders, or, you know, many of you have staff in the associations that have gone through different team building experiences and could pull one off quick during a lunch. I think it goes a long way to developing that strong sense of community. And then thinking about, as a team leader, how you approach, how you make sure that you're task-oriented and also relationship-oriented at the right times, building on the heritage relationship, so putting together people who work well, and maybe some of those people who don't always work so well can definitely be part of a positive collaboration and pick up on some skills by working with people with maybe heritage relationships already. And then also making sure people are clear about what role they hold in whatever team it may be, and giving them flexibility to work through things. So those are just 8 factors. We talked about other things: building trust, having fun, having flexibility. Part of that ties into these 8 points, but here's some keys. I actually have this on my wall on my newsprint, and when we think about our Extension Administration staff team meetings, or maybe another committee that I'm involved in, how we can, some of these points, keep those kind of back of your mind to develop that. So what I'd like to do now is for you to think about one of your teams. I'm going to give you a couple minutes to do this, and then maybe a couple of you can share what they've come up with. So just make some notes on a scrap paper or in your mind. Picture one of your teams in the future, just one team, and describe maybe how it has changed. And this is called the virtual slideshow. Again, you can use it in workshops or staff meetings. And we'd like to have each of you think about one team, describe how it's changed because you adopted one of the 8 factors. Describe your new team to this group and talk about what might be different and why. So I'll give you a couple minutes to think about your team and how is your team going to be a little bit different because of maybe one of the factors that you're going to adopt for that team. So this is the virtual slideshow. We can obviously take a lot of time to do it, and then I'll ask for a volunteer maybe to share their virtual slideshow. We are getting down to our last couple minutes. And since we're wrapping up, I'll see if we have any volunteers out there, maybe how one of your team, this is a virtual slideshow, thinking about the future, how your team has changed because you adopted one of the 8 factors, or because you will adopt one of the 8 factors. Anybody have anything quick to share before we sign off? And I'm getting some messages where people have to sign off to go off to a conference call. We are getting down to 11 o'clock. So we'll let you take that one on, something to think about with a team. Think about the 8 factors, and they're in your slide set, in your handouts and think about maybe one thing you'd want to change with one team, and I'll let you do that on your own. I appreciate everyone being part of the slide set today and also the presentation. I appreciate all of the input from those of you who had shared with us and the questions as you come on. I appreciate the presentation and the expertise that's been shared, because we really all have figured some things out because we're still here and we have successful teams. It's not always easy, but there are some things we can point back to and build up our resources. So hopefully today's presentation helps you do that. Thank you all for being involved.
Thank you, Kim.
Questions? Thank you very much. Have a good day, everyone. Good luck out there.